spooky.
I was just like brushing the tash down.
It's like you're doing a Stuart Broad 8:15. Like, never
Uh,
mind.
no,
Well,
well, no.
um, cool. It's Ashes, except the first test doesn't count. Warm up
Oh,
game. Bazball's broken. Forget it. Sack them all. Where's Ben, folks? Rub it. No, not nothing. Welcome to the Ashes review. Our first Ashes review of the pod. How exciting is this for you, Jamie?
after yesterday, less so.
Ah, yeah. So I mean, we're gonna cover all the games. We got 6 tests. We got the women starting tomorrow, which is very exciting. But we're going to be covering the first test at Edgbaston, the day after, the night before, if you will. Um, had some time to process. We're going to go innings by innings. We literally just decided. Um, but just before we do, what was your, if you could sum it up, what was your overall thoughts of that first test?
I think it was a really good game.
Mm,
I think it went back and forth quite a lot. Both teams were on top at various points,
yeah.
but I think Australia deservedly edged it. I think there was some weird decisions throughout the England game.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think just Australia were a bit more consistent overall, and the way they finished it was deserved of a win.
Yeah, I mean, I would largely agree. I think it is. I feel like it's one of the great Ashes tests, and I left it not feeling too aggrieved,
Yeah.
like because I feel like England have always had quite the rub of the green on those kind of games. Like obviously Ashes 2005, you had the kind of games that I think it was Trent Bridge and obviously Edgbaston 2013. Where they won by about 13 runs by getting Haddon out at the end. That was very close to kind of edge that. Obviously Monty and Jimmy at Cardiff, Headingley, of course. So I think England have always had those kind of edges, especially at home, and then obviously in Australia we just get pumped every time. So that's just void. But I feel as though having been on the nice side of a lot of those kind of experiences, I kind of feel a bit like, well, it's kind of time. Um, but I think what you're saying about Australia just edging it, and I've got the stats to back it up. This leads straight into the stat attack. This was reported from it's Rick Finley on the Twitter. I think he is an Australian analyst, so don't know if he has a bias. But it is quite interesting reading if you want to compare the Basball and the, I don't know, Hat Ball. Um, so over the course of the game, there's obviously only 1 run in it or 2 runs in it. So Australia scored 668 runs. Um, England scored 666. All. Difference being Australia scored 2 extra runs off 1,252 balls, whilst England scored theirs off 866. So quite a big disparity of difference. But they both only lost 18 wickets, so no 20 wickets in the match. But this is where the barest of margins come in. So Australia got
Where they
average
come in.
where they
Yeah,
pack Cummins, very good.
thank you.
Very good. I can't think of a pun off my head. Um, England averaged 37 runs per wicket, whilst Australia averaged 37.11 per wicket. So that kind of just shows you how close
Mhm.
the game was. Like it was very much in and out for a lot of the time. You felt England might be ahead, but then Australia will kind of crawl back into it and then go ahead. But then England will get a wicket at an important time, and suddenly all the momentum and the Edgbaston and the Holly stand is it's all vibes. Um, but yeah, I think that just really kind of for me just showcased it's like 0.11 of a stat is the difference between the two. And in terms of boundaries, Australia hit more 68 fours, 11 sixes compared to England 67 fours and 7 sixes. But obviously, they batted about another 400 odd balls. So they kind of expect that. But yeah, I just found it quite interesting in terms of the wickets and the runs. There's not really anything to take away between the two sides, except from the way that they play in terms of traditional Test cricket and Bazball. I think it's, for me, it was quite a real interesting tussle between England obviously completely 100% playing the way they play, and then Australia almost being as anti that as they possibly could. And the kind of like the tussle between the two, I thought was really interesting across it. But yeah, I thought that was a fun stat.
It's very interesting. I think it sums up the test
Exactly.
quite
Yeah.
nicely. I think individually, like player wise, I think Oz definitely edged it again. I like Uzi
Yeah.
getting 200 odd runs.
Yeah.
I think
Incredible. Yeah.
Lyon was probably the best bowler.
Yeah. I think Lyon and Broad were probably up there as the two.
Yeah,
As of the Cummins bowled really well. Cummins had a great game, let's be honest. um, but yeah, it was just really interesting, and I think, I'd much rather a game like this. You don't want to lose any time, but I'd much rather lose a game like this where both teams are in it
mhm.
pretty much until the last ball, rather than a turgid England who can't really play Test cricket in a traditional sense. So they just come out and smack it, and you get a game like this. I mean, could they
Like
be a bit more sensible at times? Maybe, but at the same time, this is their brand. This is who they are. This
yeah,
is what we get.
like there's a lot of memes around Bazball,
Yeah,
but there was basically a day lost through rain.
yeah,
The pitch started out as a bit of a road
yeah.
to bat on, really, and there was still a result.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah,
think that's partly why England utilize Bazball. It's so
yeah.
when time is lost, when pitches are a bit shit, they
100%.
can still force a result. It's not going to go your way all the time,
Yeah.
but
Like this will come into our innings chat. But if England had batted in the traditional way and this had just gone by the books, I think this would be nailed on draw by day four.
yeah.
The way England played, set up the game, yes, they lost, but they played in a way that if they lost, sure, but they gave themselves the best chance of winning. Um, so into that, we can go into the innings chat. I think the first innings is probably going to have the most kind of fallout post this game for a particular reason. I don't actually know your. I can't know. Don't know if I know your opinion on it. So it'll be interesting when we get to it. Um,
Off the top of my head, I can't even think what you're talking
yeah,
about,
you'll
to be
you'll
honest.
find out. So first innings was vibes. Crawley hit the first ball of the Test match for four. I like to think it was a kind of Cummins kind of threw it up there. Almost, it's kind of like said on Grey Cricket as well, but kind of thrown up there to be like, go on then, go hit it for four. And obviously he did. But just the noise of that first ball four, all the like kind of build up and all the hype, and he just like, yep, four, cheers. It was just like everything you kind of wanted from, I guess, this England team off a first ball. Um, but yeah, just quick run through of the scorecard. So, Zach batted very well for 61. Um, Probably the best I've seen him bat in a little while, if I'm honest. Got a really good ball to get out. Um, Other notable mentions, Harry Brook looked pretty good for 32, and he had kind of the freak dismissal where it kind of spun out the turf, I think, rather than hitting his body, which is really weird. Bairstow got a crucial 78. But obviously the standout innings would have been Joe Root, not out 118 wickets, like we said earlier, for Lyon, 4 for 149, going at 5 and over. Overall thoughts.
Uh, Root is Root,
Root is and back to number one today, officially announced.
as he should be.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it seemed like a solid first innings. Like Cummins had a very defensive field very early on.
Yeah.
Like I like that he had a man out for the reverse sweep because he knew England were going to go
Yeah.
play that a lot. But all it did was opening up a lot of singles, especially
Yeah.
when Root was on.
Yeah.
And Root was on for basically the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, like even early on with Duckett, I think Duckett looked fairly settled. He just played a bit of a bad
Busy.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought Pope batted all right as well until and kind of got a good one from Lyon. But yeah, I agree that the rotation of the strike was probably more of a factor than just the smashing it about. If that makes sense. Like I think Crawley really utilised that as obviously Root did.
Well, you said Australia had more boundaries in the
Yeah,
game, but I hazard a guess at England having more singles throughout.
potentially. Yeah, yeah. yeah, I think it's different to how Australia batted we'll get to, but yeah, I think in that first innings especially, there was definitely that solid rotation, which was really it was aggressive but sensible as well. I mean, Australia had the field out. It's almost as if they're expecting England just to still go for every ball, but then England adapting to be like, no, there's ones, we'll take the ones. So yeah, good. I think it's important innings for Bairstow, 78. Batted really well. It could have been very precarious. I mean, it obviously is precarious because we lost the game, but there was England being 176 for 5 at one stage. Obviously, Bairstow coming back even after a long layoff. Yeah,
I know I've just
yeah.
clocked the controversy.
We'll get to it. So yeah, they batted, put on over 100, 78. Probably the second innings of the game, I'd say, for England. But yeah, good stuff. Mo smashed a few as well. Lest we forget Mo.
It was a very Mo innings. I think this has been a very Mo game.
This is a very Mo game. Yeah. Had moments of complete brilliance, and then moments of Mo, but kind of expected with the finger. But we'll get to. But obviously, 393 for 8. They declared on the evening of day one to allow 4 overs at the end of the day. I have opinions on this. What are your opinions on this?
So for the past 5 days, I thought this was declared 4-9. So I assumed that Jimmy had come in and they were protecting Jimmy. But so like for the last few days, I've been like, fine, if they were 9 down, that makes sense. But 8 down and Robinson's going quite well, and Root is still in doing Root stuff. Like
the last over before they went off, I think they got 16 offline, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like they could have got another, just say 16 for the sake of argument. And those could have been crucial runs towards the end of Australia's second inning.
Potentially.
It was a weird one. Looking back on it, at the time, I didn't know they were only 8 down. But
Root was batting real vibes. So from my perspective, I feel it's fine. Because I think the way the pitch played on that day one, it was just flat. It was just dead. So I felt as though the decision to be like, well, we'll have 4 overs at the end is the last thing kind of Warner and Khawaja want to do, is bat 4 overs after a day in the field. If they could get 1, maybe 2 wickets in those 4 overs on a wicket like that, I think that's almost more valuable than another 16 runs. From the perspective I saw it. But then I think if you say England batted on, you've got kind of the two arguments. If they batted on, then you probably don't have the events of the test match unfold the way they did anyway, because all of this what ifs and things like that. You might not have gotten to a stage where they were pushing for a win on the last day. It might have already been draw territory. Or flip side, they could have batted and got another, say, max 30 runs. Then that might have given a bit more pressure onto Australia. But I think it's just kind of one of those little things, to be honest, which is just, I don't think it would have made too much difference, in my opinion. I think the risk of getting that extra 1 or 2 wicket in the evening probably outweighed the runs from Stokes' perspective. So I can understand it. I can understand people want to bat more, but I was kind of, yeah, sure.
I completely understand the decision.
Yeah.
And obviously my mind has been swayed by just 1 wicket in it, which, like, considering Jimmy didn't even open the bowling, would make that mindset even weirder.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely understand them wanting to have a bowl at the openers.
Yeah.
Just before day ends. It makes sense tactically, but in a game of already fine margin, just maybe another over batting, getting a few more runs might have.
Yeah, it's also they were well behind the run over rate as well, Australia. So that, they only batted 78 overs. England, there should be 90 overs in a day, but there was only 82 on that first day. So if the actual number of overs had been bowled as they normally should have been, then maybe England would have batted 85 overs, for example. But we've had this question stuff before, so I don't think that's. So yeah, that is the point of controversy, and that's why people are getting a bit irate now that they've lost the game, being like, "Oh, shouldn't declare, should you?" I mean, it would have been fine if we go into first innings of Australia. If England had just caught their catches, we're now into Australia's innings. So yeah, main standout obviously is Khawaja with 141. Travis Head got 50. Cameron Green 38. Alex Carey 66. 386 all out. Robertson with 3. Broad with 3. Anderson 1. Mo 2. Stokes 1. Shout out, I guess, to Khawaja first. Batted pretty well.
Yeah, like I've liked Khawaja for a while. I don't know if it's I had a weird dream of him at once, but
you should elaborate rather than just leave it there, because it's just like that weird dream of Usman Khawaja.
It wasn't technically Khawaja. It was a friend whose name was Usman Khawaja.
Okay.
They had their head buried in the ground for some reason.
But yeah, as is.
Whatever. But yeah, like he's in really good form at the minute. He seems like a good bloke that you wouldn't shout obscenities at after having made 140.
Yeah, it's a good guy, is he?
I mean, like, it's a weird shout and chirps to have. One of the nicest blokes in the game having just got 140.
Yeah.
And then having a pop it in second innings as well is weird. Robinson seems like a bit of a weirdo man.
Yeah, I know.
It was a bit of a shame that only Root went up to him and gave him a handshake.
I know, yeah, I thought that was a bit odd. But I guess it's the, being in the field, batted 321 balls. He was, a rock in the side. That's frustrating. Like, they've already bowled him once off a no ball. They desperately just want to see the back of him. I think, it's at, I don't want to say, but it's the Ashes, but I guess, tensions run high. It's all very big old international sport. It's all very passionate and stuff. And I guess for Robinson, it's more the relief coming out in the kind of, the way he plays, which is just to have a pop. Not that I would agree with it, but I would kind of understand it more if, you'd got Labuschagne or Warner out first ball.
Yeah, like I understand the frustration at that, but you can show it in a
of course you can. Yeah, you can celebrate and be pumped by it, but you don't necessarily need to tell him to have a little jolly way back to dressing room.
And then you can be respectful to the person who's literally batted the best.
Yeah.
In that match. And I think it looked a tiny bit different when you've had a history of racist tweets.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, for Robinson, I think it's. If it had been Smith 141, I think it'd be exactly the same. But
it depends on who's having it as well. Like I was thinking, if that was Marnus, I think Marnus would take that.
Yeah.
Pretty well. So. He was giving it back in the second innings too.
Yeah, Marnus never shuts up. So it's that's the kind. If you're gonna pop at someone who's gonna chirp back or has chirp first. Marnus does never stops, so he appeals for anything, and it's just like it would be tempting to give it back. So weird. But it kind of feels weird as well because this series just kind of feels like a mirror. So it feels like we're almost like the Aggie Australians, and then Australia playing in kind of like the nice English way, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. If you look like back to the Australian teams of old, so Steve Smith's Australia before sandpaper, Michael Clark's Australia when he says to Jimmy like get ready for a broken nepping arm, all that kind of stuff. I guess, England playing on the front foot, being aggressive, but then Australia being nice, being led by nice Pat Cummins, playing nice traditional cricket.
I mean, but weird vibes. England, we're vibes and we're playing aggressive cricket, but other than Robinson being a bit of a twat,
no,
the rest of our team have been particularly.
I guess the way they, not necessarily Aggie, but playing in an aggressive way. It doesn't necessarily have to be aggressive on the pitch, but Australia with the likes of Warne or Gilchrist or Hayden, those kind of very big presence players playing aggressively. I guess in the terms of the way they play, rather than being like aggy in a verbal sense.
Well, then I don't think that's a massive thing. I think you'd rather play in an aggressive, positive manner. But that said, Australia didn't. Oh, it's a weird game when you look
It's
at
a
it
weird
like that.
game.
Because Australia batted a bit more traditionally, but had more boundaries and won, versus the Bazball
Yeah.
aggressive, positive stuff.
Yeah, tis true. I mean, they batted 116 overs in the end. It was a very kind of, at times, especially at the end of day 2, it did feel like very turgid. And it felt like I like Test cricket, but when it was just sort of Usman batting for ages with Carey, I think it was, and it's just like, come on. It's like I've seen too many of Khawaja's forward or back foot defenses. I'm just like, I'm done.
Yeah,
But
I mean, looking at that, it was the left-handers that were doing quite well. Other than Warner, we've got Khawaja, Head, Carey, all with decent scores.
Yeah. I mean, Head is in great form, and Head's been in good form for a while in that middle order. He would very easily fit into England's mould of the way he counterattacks. But as would Carey. But I think, a lot of that comes down to England's bowling. So Broad bowled really well. Obviously got Labuschagne first ball, which was absolute vibes. Got Broad again, which of course is also vibes. Robinson bowled well at the end. He was 0-55 at one stage, then finished 3-55 and mopped up the tail. That would have been nice in the second innings, but never mind. We had Harry Brook have a cheeky bowl, which was just nonsense, but I kind of can understand it. Like, it's village cricket, but on international cricket, like, Brook is probably the last person that Smith is going to think about facing, and suddenly he's got to hat back Harry Brook, and I think he actually bowled all right.
Best economy.
Yeah, he bowled more maidens than Cummins did in the first innings, so that's Stokes had a bowled 7 overs and got the key wicket, Steve Smith, which was a great ball. Kind of just dropped. Like, it looked like it was high, but then looked sort of bobbed down, which is a good ball. But I think the main talking point would be Mo. How would you assess Mo in that first innings, considering he had 2 drops and 1 missed stumping? I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, he did okay. He did as well as you'd expect from Mo, whether he's 2 years from retirement or like consistently playing Test match.
Yeah.
Anyway, like, I think the big thing with Mo's bowling is not done it for so long, having like opened the skin on his finger, but not be able to bowl more, which I think calls into question the decision to bring him back.
Sure, yeah.
Even more. Like, overall, has calling Moeen Ali back out of retirement been that much of a positive for this game? How much worse would a Jax or a Dawson or a Ahmed have done?
Yeah,
honestly,
because
considering his finger in the second innings, we could have used with an off spinner, bowling a lot, and he just wasn't physically able to. And if that's because he's not played in so long, so he's not calloused his finger up.
Yeah,
I
think it was like 9 layers of skin or something. It's just like it's in. You can see the way, like, I think Ponting picked up on it, how he's gripping the ball in a slightly different way to try and just do something. I think it's been written about and talked about, but I think at his best, Mo is England's best spinner. But whether you get Mo at his best is another question. Like, you saw glimpses of it in the Test match, I think were great. The Cameron Green ball was just great. That was good vibes. The way Stokes captained him in the first innings before the finger issues, I thought was also really interesting. Like, he was getting smashed about by Head, but Stokes was just like, no, I'm keeping the field up. And then in the end, Head kind of miscued one to mid wicket, and that was, you have to say, really good captaincy. Should have had Cameron Green stumped first of all for naught. Kind of a regulation stumping from Bairstow, missed. And then also had Carey dropped behind. So he could have easily ended up with 4 or 5 in that first innings, and we'd be saying, what a great decision to recall Mo and things like that. But that Cameron Green ball especially was great. I just think, let down by the fielders, but I don't really have much qualms about his first innings performance because that was obviously pre-injury gate. And I think he did everything that was expected of him. He produced wicket-taking deliveries. He wasn't going to hold up an end. He came in to do the job that, Stokes expected. So, yeah, I mean, second innings aside, I thought first innings was all right. Again, should have had 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, another 1 or 2 wickets, and it's a more positive review on Mo's performance. But like overall, his performance it's just very Mo. Like the batting.
If you wanted a Mo in a nutshell, this is a Mo game.
Exactly. Like bowling, amazing at times, smashed other times.
Yeah.
Batting, some really proper Bazball shots.
Yeah.
And just throws his wicket away really cheaply.
Yeah. Classic Mo. Classic Mo.
They knew what they were getting with Mo.
Exactly. That that's you're not expecting anything else, are you? I did think he did seem to be enjoying it a lot more from the perspective, like, when he got his wickets, you could really sense that kind of like enjoyment and passion from Mo, which I think sometimes, especially in the India series a couple of years ago, felt lacking. It almost felt like he was kind of there running through motions. Obviously, this is complete conjecture. It's probably playing Test cricket anytime, but I think there was a sense of like the relief that he can just go and play how he wants to play. There's not going to be any repercussions, and they're going to be like, oh, that was a loose shot. Oh, that's a bad ball. It's just being like, no, keep going. We know what you're going to get. And I think that kind of freedom, the lack of shackles, I think enabled him to enjoy it a bit more. And I hope he has more of a role in the series, just to build upon that. But whether or not that thing is going to be too much of an issue, we'll see. One thing as well, I'll note before we go into the third innings of the match, England bowled 15 no balls. 15 no ball. Like, I think Broad probably bowled the most. Let's have a look. He bowled 7. I mean, Stokes bowled 6.
One of them being a wicket as well.
One of them being a wicket. Yeah, it's a thing that always annoys me. Like, you see all the training videos, and every time they overstep massively in the nets, and you can't say that's not having an effect in a game situation. It's ridiculous. Like, and it makes you wonder how many are picked up now with the third umpire and how many were missed before. It's just bin stuff. Did you want to mention Bairstow, or shall we jump into third innings?
It was a bit shit, wasn't it? It was a bit rusty for a keeper.
I think rusty form, confidence, a year out of the game. Again, it's kind of like Mo. That's what you're going to have to expect.
I mean, the difference with Mo is Johnny was injured, not retired from cricket.
Yeah, but I mean, as in, Johnny's not kept, obviously in the year being injured, but he's not kept even before then either when he was playing as specialist batter. When you're picking him as a keeper that he's going to be rusty. And that's what you get. I mean, he took some good catches. The catch of Labuschagne was really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, there's a lot of like contention. Obviously, Folkes is the better keeper. 1,000,000%. He's probably the best keeper in the world.
I would say Butler's the better keeper as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably at this stage of his career, definitely. He keeps more.
Test match keeper.
Yeah.
Like, obviously for white ball, but I'd say test match keeper Butler.
I think so. I think he's a bit more of a natural kind of athlete, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously Folkes, probably Billings is, but probably Folkes is the best I'd say best keeper in the world. But he doesn't fit into this team. The way they want to have this team set up, there is just no way for Folkes. And I think that's just, it's all well and good. A lot of people like calling out arms, being like, I want Folkes, where Folkes need to be in this team. He doesn't fit. Like, if he did, great, I want him in too, but he's not going to open the batting. He's not going to bat at 3. And I think that's the only slots that are potentially available. And that's just that.
Yeah. If Joss was any good at Test cricket, that would solve a lot of problems.
I think so, yeah.
He's just not. He's just not.
No. That has gone. That surprised me a little bit, I guess, that he didn't have a chance last summer. But he's obviously, unlike Mo, being like when Stokes texted tests, he was like, nah.
He meant long.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think that's all you can expect from that. I mean, folks might have a role play in the series if an injury happens, but nah. England's second innings, so third innings of the game. All bits and pieces starts in here. They were 273 all out. Lyon got another four for Cummins got four, a couple of 40s, things like that. Anything to note from you on this one?
Not particularly. I think there was one contentious not catch that Marnus very like exuberantly went up for
Yeah,
when it had clearly definitely grounded.
yeah, yeah.
I think
That's unbelievable.
there was another like similar catch Green took to his Gill one, which was clearly a catch.
Yeah, or the Test Championship. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But that Marnus one was taking the piss a bit.
yeah.
That appeal was
There was so many appeals. Like there was one where it missed the bat by miles, and yeah, there was a kind of like I saw Cummins literally apologize to Carey at one point for reviewing something. Their reviews were bad, I think, Australia in this game, but I think it's very difficult when you got Marnus screaming at short leg for pretty much everything. Yeah. But yeah, a lot more tricky listenings. There was obviously the day 3, when it was a bit rainy and murky and they lost 2-0, and they were about 22 for 2. But I guess the main thing is when he came to day 4, the first ball of the day, Root tried to reverse scoop.
I think Broad was doing an interview with Sky, and like he'd said that Root had told him, "I fancy a reverse scoop for 6 this first ball," and it just does
it's
it.
wild. It's like that. It's the first day of like first ball of match defining day, and it's the Cummins. It only missed the stumps by centimeters, and
Yeah.
like it's I can't understand it. But then the next over, I think he gets a 6 and a 4 from it as well. It's just
Yeah.
it's unbelievable sometimes. Like the confidence he has. Like to him, it's like it's not a risk because he said he doesn't. I don't miss it, and it's easy run. So I can't. I just don't understand.
Who really understands baseball?
Yeah, I mean, Root is that like he's quite rightly number 1 in the world now again, and I think he is the best player, or best batter currently, or best in form one. So yeah, good time. Root got 46. I thought batted really well. Got a bit tied down towards the end. I guess the main talking point of this is probably how Stokes batted. So he got 43, but 43 non-baseball-esque runs. If you want to call it that. So he really took his time getting in. And I think that's always when Stokes bats best, is when he gives himself like half an hour of just seeing himself in, and then he goes. And I thought he batted really well here. And then I guess other talking points, Jimmy got a reverse 4 first ball, and I think smashed someone else to recover a 4. But yeah, it's just a bit kind of bits and pieces in it. It's just kind of setting up the game really, and then kind of got to where you expect they would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm well glad that I like spot on predicted the
Oh yeah,
England would set Australia. Um, yeah, it's just a bit bitty. Really, it would have been nice for the 3 in the 40s to get their 50s, but
yeah. It's obviously your prediction was bang on, but yeah, it's kind of where you'd expect them to declare anyway, even if they're 5 down, because it dangles the carrot enough for Australia to go for it. And, if it had been 30 more, then I don't think Australia would have gone for it. I think you'd get to the stage if they get, say, 5 down on day 5, they'd be like, nah, it's not worth the risk, we'll shut up shop. But I always think 280 is always like, that's always kind of in reach. I think they even needed about, what was it, 50 of about 15 overs at the end, which is when you're 8 down, that's
yeah,
still fair whack.
Cummins and Lyon definitely were in together, and there were at least 50 runs left.
Yeah, they got 50, but definitely 50 partnership. Like
Yeah.
the end of the, we're into the 4th innings now. The way they batted at the end was the most aggressive that Australia batted in that innings. It was almost sort of like, well, we're 8 down. If we defend, we're out. We might as well try and get the runs. That's how I viewed it. Like
I wouldn't even say it was like intentionally aggressive. I think
No,
it
I
was
don't think so.
just like playing the situation, playing the balls.
Yeah. I think it all kick-started from that additional route over where they got 14 off it. Right, what was my train of thought? Fourth innings, turning point was Root, wasn't it? For ease, let's go back to the beginning of the innings. So Australia started really well. They were 61 for none. And Khawaja and Warner were batting pretty well. And then there was that big old cluster of wickets in the end of day 4 where they got 3, where it was Warner, Labuschagne, Smith, and the noise when Smith edged behind was just magnifique. Just like, it's something you don't often see. Both Marnus and Smith have a poor game, but yeah, they both didn't really contribute anything in the test.
Like that's either a very big positive or a big worry. Like either they're both really out of nick, or like they will come back and have a big score.
Yeah,
in all of these preceding 4 games.
Yeah, well, I think both Smith and Marnus had a stint at county cricket this season. I don't think they really set the world alike. There are a few kind of spurious kind of LBWs given against Smith, which is fair enough. But I think even before then, I don't think they've necessarily had great tours in India, if I can remember rightly. So I think Labuschagne's especially not struggling for form, but I think still feeling his way back into some good rhythm. And Smith is experienced enough that he'll come good at some stage, or he might not. But it does look like Broad has got a slight advantage against Labuschagne. I think he got him out a couple of times at the end of the last voided series, and then a couple of times here. So potentially that's another battle, as well as Broad v Warner. You got Broad v Labuschagne, which is good. But yeah, they then set in Scott Boland as a night watchman, and it's not really a night hawk, but he did his job. He got 20. It was kind of 20 frustrating runs, especially that kind of day 5 after first session. Wasn't the morning, but the first session of day 5, until he did edge behind off Broad. Just going through who got out, just a way is easy of doing it. They're trying to remember the good times, the good feelings yesterday. Travis Head out for 16, I thought was going to be key. I think almost was, but like the way he plays, like if he had batted for 40 minutes, then I think that's game gone straight away. And it was a very good ball from Mo, and again that's why he was picked in the seat side. Like, literally no seal on his finger, and he's still able to get one really like rip. It was been a terrible over before that. They'd all been dragged downs and things like that. But then that one just absolutely in the right areas, and then Graham Swanish, I guess, and then got him edge behind. And I just thought, was that the moment?
It's strange because like these final 3 wickets, you could all make a case for being the moment to push.
This is it. Like
Mo coming back at Edgbaston, taking Head was arguably the most dangerous player left.
Yeah.
There, Robinson getting a bowled is then like just vibes any time, but given the game situation, that could have really boosted the team. And then Root caught and bowled to Carey. Like Carey was the last real hurdle.
Recognised batter.
Yeah. Well, I say last real hurdle. The last real hurdle was Pat coming like Dolka.
Oh, it's frustrating. But I mean, quick mention to Khawaja as well, who got 65 and obviously topped off his very good game. Stokes didn't give him a send-off, but Stokes bowling was good. And I think if Stokes was fully fit, it's another one of these. If both Stokes and Mo were 100% fit, I think there was no problem in this final day. Like Mo would have easily bowled more. Stokes probably would have bowled at the end rather than Broad and Robinson, because he's a bit quicker with the short stuff, but wasn't fit enough to. But he bowled 7 overs, 1 for 9, and I thought those 7 overs were great. Like if it was very much like peak Stokes, like this is the moment, got the key batter out, let's win the game. And I just feel like if he had been a little bit more fit, I think that could have been a tie turner, but it wasn't. But I also weirdly think that getting Khawaja out was also not great, because Khawaja wasn't really scoring. He was being resolute and blocking a lot, but he'd really not struggled to score, but like hasn't really been busy. So I think the run rate was always kind of growing whilst Khawaja was in, and then whilst he's out, that brought Cummins in with Carey, and both of those obviously quite a bit more free flowing players. But obviously you want to get rid of Khawaja because you need to win the game. But I just felt it almost as even though that should have been a big let's win, it was almost like that means everyone else is going to attack now. So, but you know, it's just crick.
Yeah, but like if you've got batters attacking more, especially
more likely to get them
lower,
out. Yeah,
exactly. Like there's more low risk shots being taken.
Yeah,
high risk.
That's May as well happen Carey, isn't it? Exactly. So like the caught and bowled off Root was great. It's obviously I would say it's instinct, but the fact he had dropped 2 caught and bowls before that is obviously a bit more prepared. But it's great. Like the fact that they show it in the real time, there's no time. Like how do you like my hands would still be like down there by the time the ball hit me in the face. But yeah, Root bowled very well. I guess they were getting into the end territory, but he bowled 15 overs in the end, 1 for 43. But at one stage, he bowled 11 overs, about 1 for 16. The key moment was when the new ball was due. I think everyone was expecting the new ball to be taken, but then Stokes kept Root on, and then Root got the wicket of Carey, which is obviously vitally important. That brings Nathan Lyon in, and you think England have got this. They need 52 to win, 2 wickets left. Might be even more than that. But then he kept Root on again another over, and that over then went for 14. And I think for me and some of our followers who reply, that was kind of the momentum turning point, I think. Because Root had a good rhythm, especially against Carey as a left-hander, but then 2 right-handers, I think, just kind of played into the arc of them a bit more. Like it was a bit more easier to score as a right-hander and left-hander, I would think. But these are just the kind of tiny margins that, you know, they could have skied one and then Root's got 2 for. But I think that was probably the moment you brought on Anderson or Robinson rather than the over after. But it's easy in hindsight.
Yeah, the 2 like major turning points in favour of Australia was when England chose not to take the new ball.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, not having Jimmy be one of those bowlers with the ball. Like he's not had a great game.
Yeah.
But like you always feel with Jimmy, there's always something bottled up in a match. Like England needed 2 wickets with a new ball. Why are you not bowling Jimmy Anderson? Unless he said that it should be Robinson and Broad.
Like, I don't know. He was heavily involved in all the kind of discussions all the time, but even if he's had a bad game, you would back him.
Exactly.
Like, you know, you lost anyway. It doesn't matter. Like when he needed like 10 to win, what difference is it going to make? I mean, I can understand keeping Broad and Robinson on once they're in a groove, but Broad was beating the bat a lot, so I think you'd keep Broad on. But I don't think Robinson was offering too much. He bowled a few good Yorkers, but I think, you know, you're just looking for a real hooping Jimmy in swinger or something at that point. Because what Jimmy can also do is just keep it tight. I mean, he did bowl a few loose deliveries in this game, but again, I think that's just rustiness, and I think you would also back him to bank and experience. But I guess you just make a gut decision on the day, and just didn't work out. You'd expect, you know, both Broad and Robinson to get Lyon out. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, of course, but like there was another thing you said about Stokes. If he was a bit more fit, bowling more at the end because he's got a bit more pace. Is there not another, like, not necessarily poor decision, but like a decision where they should have selected a fast bowler, a Wood or
I think Wood should play this game, definitely, 100%. Like I think given the pitch, it was needed that bit of extra. You know, Robinson was bowling about 78 miles an hour most of the game, and if you bowl Wood, that's probably 20 miles more than that. Like that makes a big difference, especially for, like Nathan Lyon's not going to face Mark Wood at the end. He'd much rather fend off short balls from Molly Robinson. So I agree. I think Wood will 100% play in the next game. But yeah, definitely missed him here and missed Stokes being fit. But
missed having a frontline spinner for most.
Yeah, like they were basically bowling because Anderson did bowl at the end, so it makes me think, was he carrying potentially a bit of like a rusty niggle or whatever at the end? So you're effectively at the end, you're bowling with Broad and Robinson as your two fit bowlers. Robinson just coming off an injury, and then Root as your prime spinner, who's a part-time spinner.
I would say again that's very much on the selectors and on that, because like you've got two players coming off an injury to bowl in a Ashes Test match.
Yeah.
It
could have been three.
You've got one coming off for retirement, and you've got Stokes who says he's fit, but he's not really fit, is he?
Yeah.
But, like you're bowling Harry Brook for like 3 overs.
Yeah.
But you're bowling Harry Brook.
Yeah, exactly. Like on paper, it looks this is fine, but in reality, is it a bit more cracks opening than it's been letting on? So yeah, I think, but even Wood has obviously had a history of injuries, so bringing him in isn't necessarily going to help those issues. If he goes down half through the test, then you're kind of screwed even more. But I don't know, but maybe Wokes will play at Lords because he bowls well at Lords, but yeah, he's not played an awful lot recently. I don't know, but it could have only taken 2 balls. I mean, Lyon was dropped. Lest we forget, Cummins was also dropped off Root's bowl. I mean, that it felt as though that was the next turning point when Stokes dropped what would have been an absolute worldie. Because if he'd caught that in front of the Hollies, the roof probably would have blown off. And then big on momentum, you'd back them to get Hazelwood out fairly cheaply. But then Stokes said in the interview, Hazelwood could have come in and then he could have also knocked them off. Like it was looking very docile and dead at the end. It needed that kind of big spark moment of that Stokes catch to take the game. And after that, it just didn't come. There are a few player misses, but it just wasn't meant to be.
No, I think in and around that Stokes not catch, like I think there were a few fielding mishaps as well. I think Crawley pushed one onto the boundary. Like, maybe pressure, or like maybe England could feel it sort of slipping away.
Yeah.
And that got to their nerves.
It gave off very Cummins said it felt similar. It gave off Headingley 2019-ish vibes, like the wheels slowly start to come off as the momentum shifts to Australia. I think as soon as Australia had that momentum, I think just Cummins just did not let up. Like, I think, his 44 there not out was just, almost flawless, really. He looked most awkward against Stokes, but then when Stokes went out the attack, and that kind of half chance to Root, other than that, he just looked absolutely fine. I mean, Lyon played and flashed a few. He hit a great 4 over mid-on, which was ridiculous in that situation. But yeah, at that point, there was no movement off the pitch, which I think is why they didn't go to the new ball, because it just wasn't doing anything. They thought the old ball was probably maybe reversing, but they both batted really well, got the 50 odd, and Cummins is definitely no mug with the bat. I think in the end, putting it back to what we said earlier, they probably overall played the better cricket to win the game. And I think, England can only really blame themselves for it. Like all the drop catches, no balls, probably the selections. That's where the issue lies, really. If England taken all their catches and all their chances, stuff like that, I think they would have won the game. But
I think that's why they won't be so disappointed, because the things that cost them the game, they can fix.
They were in control of.
Enough. They can make better decisions with selection. They can definitely catch better.
100%.
Crawley can not bat on his 20-second stump or on the next pitch over. A few wickets were just really poorly given away.
Yeah, Root's second innings wicket, I think, was probably the poorest. I mean, it feels very difficult to chastise.
It had shades of Mo when I was watching.
Yeah. I don't like to chastise Root. It was his first stumping, and he had batted very well. He had batted like a god throughout the rest of the test. But it did feel as though you can sweep Lyon for days. You can eat. There was 100 there easily for the taking for Root. The way he was scoring was just absolutely carefree. But I think that's at that point, that's when momentum another point of momentum for Australia. And I think he could have easily just batted through again in that innings. And I think that shot was a bit rash. But, he'll probably do it again next week.
Like, you can somewhat excuse that sort of.
Yeah, of course. With Root, especially.
With this, but like the Crawley one, in my opinion, is the most egregious because he's so far across.
Which was the Root one? Which innings? The first innings or the second innings?
I think Root was dumped second innings.
Yeah.
The Crawley, I think the Crawley one I'm thinking of is second innings.
Yeah, because I know the first innings he had a good ball. Second ball, they were playing in that. Was that when it was the rain and dark light and stuff with Crawley?
Yeah,
that kind of,
it probably was.
Yeah,
but then again, I think Ponting said on commentary it was like sixth stump. Like, I know this is baseball, but it's still a test match. You can leave some.
Yeah,
it's not even. If he was playing an attacking shot, he's just going to feel them.
Yeah,
block it, which I think Crawley does quite a lot.
He gets out an awful lot that way.
Just leave a few, just leave.
Yeah, Duckett was the same. Duckett was definitely feeling out of lot, but he kind of goes that kind of cut that just sort of like steers it to gully each time. I think a lot of it does come down to rustiness of this test side, if I'm honest. Like, we spoke about the Ireland game, which didn't really feel like a proper warm-up, whilst Australia on the back of a test against India. But I think these teams are very similar. I think once England get in there, they'll be better for this game, I would say. There are obviously a lot of positives, the way Root bats, it's Bairstow batted, Stokes got some runs and some wickets, which is key for the series. Broad bowled well, Robinson bowled well in the end. So there are things which are like, hey, but I think at the moment, Australia, I think as suspected, have a bit more of an oiled side. And that kind of just makes the difference.
Vibes will not be enough.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see how it goes. I think before we round up then, do you have any predictions for the next test or how England might shake up their side and changes? If we go on the probable feeling that Mo won't be fit, what do you reckon will be the makeup for England in the next game?
I think 1 to 7 will be the same.
Yeah.
I think Moel, I think one of Robinson or Anderson out, depending on fitness. I'd like to see Rian Ahmed in. I think Wood will play just to have that different seamer option for as good as Broad, Robinson and Anderson are. They're all fairly similar types of bowlers, so we need that change with the pace. Just a couple of changes with the bowlers, I guess.
Yeah,
hopefully Ahmed and Wood.
Fair. I guess considering how Root bowled, I mean, potentially they might go 4 seamers, bowl Anderson, Broad, Robinson, Wood, and then have Root potentially, but I don't know if that feels too old England. I think if they bring in a spinner, I would imagine it would be Jacks. I guess he's the most similar-ish to Mo with all the left-handers, but don't know. I guess we'll find out fairly soon, but we will be there at the next test if it is not raining. We will be at day 3 of the Lord's Test match, which is next week. That's come around quickly, hasn't it, Jamie?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. You excited?
I am. If it doesn't rain and isn't 30 degrees.
Well, I'll have a quick look at the weather forecast. Live weather forecast on Just Not Crick.
For 9 days' time.
Yeah. Wood weather. Because it has been changing. So this is to future us as well. So at this point on this day, it says that the 30th of June is raining.
Cool.
But it's only light rain. There's never any rain over 50% according to the BBC. It does clear up a lot more in the afternoon. It has changed every day. It's been very annoying. It was saying 28 degrees, pure sunshine yesterday, so that is good. So we'll be there, obviously, whatever. Reporting live from the ground in some way. Tomorrow starts the women's game. England have announced their team. Danny Wyatt is going to have her debut, as well as need to remember who's playing. Filler, who's a fast bowler, who I think John Overton describes the fastest bowler in the country in women's games, so that's good vibes. That starts tomorrow at Trent Bridge. I think it's pretty much sold out, so we can cover that afterwards. But yeah, Ashes is back. Yay. Any final points or views from you? I think we've covered a lot of it.
Yeah, just lol, I guess.
Lol, Ashes. Oh, well, if you want to follow us on the places, you can. But what are those places?
Instagram,
Oh,
TikTok, Twitter,
yeah.
YouTube,
Yeah.
OnlyFans, not OnlyFans.
Oh, not yet. We're only 3 followers away of 700 off the Twitter, which is very exciting. And only 3 off 300 on the TikTok, which I've not uploaded to in several months.
But it's fine. John Cena is holding the fort down.
Thank you, John Cena. Yeah. Good stuff. Good internet culture. But yay, we will see you next week for our next review episode. And then after that, we'll have our in-person review episode at the Lord's game and maybe some Nets videos. Don't know. But thank you for listening, I guess.
I wasn't really listening. I was just
okay. Out. But if you are listening at home, thank you for listening. You don't have to. Or watching on the YouTube. Subscribe.
You're probably not listening to this. This is just
this is the end.
Yeah.
Oh, Ashes.
Lol.